stop using just your hands and your arms. We have to do a full body dance. Yeah, I know. Hi, I'm Kent and welcome to Turn a Wood Bowl. You know, on this channel we cover all sorts of different topics besides just turning bowls from start to finish. We've covered how to use a bowl gouge properly. We've covered what direction you should be moving with the bowl gouge in order to get a supported grain cut. We've even talked about tools you should never use when turning a wood bowl. But you know what we've never talked about is how do we move our body when we're turning wood bowls? And moving our body when we're turning wood bowls is a lot like dancing. Now, you might be thinking throwing your body around in whatever direction is kind of dancing, and there are some people that dance like that. But if you think about it, most dance moves are refined, controlled movements that are put together in a particular sequence. And when we turn wood bowls, we actually do something very similar. So it is kind of like a dance. I'm going to show you exactly how to make a nice straight cut when we're cutting through the end grain or if we're doing a face cut. And I'm going to show you how to make a curved cut, especially when we're doing the exterior of a bowl. That's going to be really important. I'm going to show you how your body should move when you're making straight cuts, such as the end grain on the side of a bowl or the face cut across the face of the bowl. And I'm going to show you how to make a curved cut and how your body should move in order to make that curved cut fluid and smooth. Now, if you think about it, our body is made up of lots of joints. We've got joints in our fingers, we've got movement in our wrists, we've got shoulder movement, we've got elbow and we got shoulder movement. We've got all sorts of movement. And then if you add your waist to that and your legs, we can basically make our hands go anywhere, which is great. And you would think we should be able to make really good curved shapes by using all of these joints, right? Well, let's look at an example here. I'm going to use my hand and all of my movement to make a nice round circle here on this paper. Okay, that's not too bad, but there's a better way to make a really nice, smooth, almost perfectly round circle every time. And what way might that be? Yeah, you might be guessing it. A compass. Well, what's a compass doing? A compass has got a fixed point and a rotation around that fixed point, and it makes a great circle every time. And why is that? Well, because it doesn't have joints all over. It doesn't have the option to flex and move like our body does. It has restricted and refined movement path that it can take, and that's it. It can't go all over the place randomly like our hands and our arms can do. So if we're turning our bowls and we're using just our hands and our arms, we're going to see random shapes and random paths created just like we do when we draw. So instead of doing that, we're going to want to make refined movements that are more controlled, that allow the tool to stay on a straight path or to keep it into a curved path. Now, something else you want to keep in mind, a long-handled tool is super beneficial, especially when turning wood bowls. Now, why is that? Well, to refine that movement like we have in the compass, we need to keep this tool under control. And one of the ways we do that is we keep this handle up against our hip or rather our belt line. And we attach that. The tool becomes part of our body. And we're going to make really simple, small, refined movements by shifting our weight. And that's it. We're never using our hands and our arms. If we're cutting with our hands and our arms, we're not going to see good lines. We're not going to see good, clean cuts. Okay. Now, when we're working the interior of a bowl, we will be using our hands and our arms to turn the tool, but we're also going to be using a pivot point, and I'll show you how that works too. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make nice straight cuts, and I'm going to show you how to do curved cuts as well. So let's jump right in and get started. Okay, so I'm going to use this very simple, pretty clean bowl blank. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show some movements here that are just hand and arm controlled. This is not what we want to be doing. Without this tool braced against our body, we have very little control when we have little hiccups in the cut. You can see those scratch marks being made in here. Now let's back up and take a look at this. You can see I have the tool away from my body, and I'm just using my hands and arms. My body's not moving. I'm just reaching across the tool rest. This is exactly what we don't want to be doing. Look at the marks that were just created. We did not get a smooth cut. It's almost akin to scratching versus cutting. Okay, so now let's do this properly. You can see I'm taking the handle of the tool and I'm resting it up against my belt line, and my hands and arms are going to be locked up against the side of my body. They are not moving. The only thing that's going to be moving is my body. I'm shifting my weight forward. Those cuts are rather deep. I have to go a little bit deeper to get underneath them. Now, see my body sliding forward? My hands and my arms are not moving. It's just the shifting of my weight from left to right. Now you can see, from this angle, you can see that I'm going to shift my weight forward, basically flexing at my knees as I'm making this cut. You almost see no movement at all in the upper portion of this, which is exactly what you want. And that's how you're going to maintain a nice, clean, straight cut. Look how nice that cut is. There's almost no scratches in it. Barely needs to be sanded. And that's created from holding the tool tight. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting down pressure on the tool rest with the left hand. At no point does the left hand ever steer a cut or try to direct the tip of the tool. It is just there to guide it. And as you can see here, my thumb is pressing down on the tool to keep it on the tool rest, and my index finger is sliding across the tool rest. That's the only purpose for my left hand. The depth of the cut is controlled by my right hand on the handle, and it's just a very, very slight angle that's going to change to create a thicker or deeper cut versus a thinner cut. But those movements are almost not even perceptible. Okay, here again, we're doing a face cut, and I'm not using my body. I'm using my hands and my arms, and I'm just moving the tool. The wood is always going to have uneven characteristics, and when an area of the wood comes by the tool that's a little bit more difficult to cut, it's going to jiggle the tool around. And if you have the tool away from your body like I do right now, when that occurs, you're not going to have control over that whole tool, and you're going to have these ugly passes that make it look more like an old vinyl record versus a bowl. Now let's look at the same pass, the same cut, with a support. Instead of using my hands, I'm using my left hand is forcing the front of the tool down on the tool rest and guiding it along the tool rest, and the right portion of this tool, the handle, is braced up against my side. There you can see that I have it up against my belt line, and it's my whole body, and I'm leaning in towards the cut. So I'm leaning up into the cut. You can see how I pulled back there. Now I'm going to position my feet. Now the other thing that's really important to know is my feet will never move during this cut. If I pick up a foot and move it even an inch, there's going to be a hiccup in the cut. There, you will see it on the bowl where the foot moved. So your feet are positioned, and the only thing you're doing is you're leaning forward. I'm also positioning my body so that I'm comfortably balanced in about the middle portion of a cut. So right here, I'm reaching a little bit forward. Here we go again. So I'm bracing down on my side. I've got my body positioned. And what's going to happen is I'm almost parallel with the tool rest here, more at about a 45-degree angle. I'm going to start the cut. And I'm simply leaning my upper body weight forward as the cut is progressing. See how little movement you can detect in my body? That translates into a nice, clean, straight cut. So let's take a look at this. If I'm not cutting, this is the motion I'm making. It's just much slower. I actually went a little too far there, but I'm basically just shifting my body weight forward, coming back and resetting another cut, and I'm pushing down on the tool rest. You can put your hand on top of the tool if you're more comfortable with that. It's more important to have pressure down into the tool rest than anything else. And then you're just guiding it across the tool rest. That's all the motion is. And you can practice that move without making a cut. Okay, so now let's do a curve cut. I'm going to position the tool rest at about a 45-degree angle, which is going to be pretty much in the middle of the cut path. And I'm going to position my feet parallel with the tool rest in about the center portion of the cut. Now, the first few cuts are going to be relatively small, so the movement's going to be small. But as we make the curve of the bowl, the distance that my body needs to rotate across is going to become longer. So I'm going to start making passes. And again, make practice cuts, make practice passes here so you get a sense of what's going to be happening. Here's how I'm going to curve my body when I'm making the turns. But we're not making turns yet. We've got to basically nibble off some of the corner of this bowl. See how my feet do not move? I'm shifting my body weight from my right to the left side, and that's it. Nothing else. Okay, let's go ahead and start cutting. It's almost like a golfer taking practice swings. We're going to do the same exact thing we just practiced, but for real. You can see I'm going back to the starting point, and I'm essentially just unlocking my left knee and shifting my body weight from the right side of my body to the left side of my body as this cut is being made. Again, feet do not move. Okay, so what happens if a foot moves?
If you're liking this video and you're learning something from it, do me a huge favor and click that like button below the screen. Thank you.
I'm making a pass. This curve is getting larger on the bowl. There went one little movement. Just that little movement, I probably moved 3 or 4 inches. And there, see that hump? That was from the movement of picking up that foot. The cut was in the curve was completely interrupted. So we don't want to pick up our feet. We want to go through one smooth pass all the way around, shifting our weight all the way across. Okay, now what happens if the tool's not rested up against my body? Well, I could try to make a cut, but again, there's going to be little moments when the wood grips the tool a little bit more and then vibrates it and bounces it around. And when it does that, it's going to make little grooves, tool marks. Nobody likes tool marks, and they can be really frustrating. Here you can see what happens if we don't have the tool properly anchored. And the way we anchor it is we have it up against our body, and we're applying down pressure with our left hand onto the tool rest. Again, remember, the left hand is not doing anything to guide this tool. We're basically using the right hand as a rudder, steering the tool, but at the same time, we're keeping that tool handle right up against our body so it's well supported. Look how clean that cut is. Okay, so I'm centering myself. This cut's getting longer and larger, so I have to reach across a bit to start the curve. And I also got to remember to move the tool rest up as we start whittling down. And I'm reaching across the lathe to start the cut. I don't want to start over here because if I start over here, I will be overextended by the time I get to the end of the cut. So as I'm going around this curve, I'm going to be positioned in the center. I'm standing centered here in about the middle of the curve. Now I'm leaning to my left to finish out the cut. Let's look at this from a different angle. Okay, so again, I'm centered and parallel with the tool rest, and the tool rest is about 45 degrees to the face of the bowl. I lean across the lathe and start the cut. I'm shifting my body weight from right to left. And as I pass center, I have to reach a little bit to the left. But now I've made one pass uninterrupted. Now, you don't have to make this. Remember, we have another video where I talked about how to make these really dramatic wood turner cuts where everything looks perfect and beautiful. You don't have to make this in one pass. You can do this in multiple sections. So you could do a section there. You could stop and go to another section. Now, if you do that, what's going to happen is you're probably going to have a little bit of a noticeable interruption between those two joints. And a common thing that people do, and I did this, was to try to make another pass or another cut to remove that little hump. And if you keep doing that, you're eventually going to be left with nothing more than a doorknob as opposed to a bowl. So see this little hump, that high spot? I went ahead and marked this with a pencil. Instead of making a cut where I'm going to remove a whole bunch of material, I'm going to use the shear scrape. Now, if you're not familiar with the shear scrape, this is the perfect application. I only want to take down a little bit of that high spot, and I want to merge those two curved areas together. This is where the shear scrape comes into play. And look what's happening. I'm making practice cuts here. Again, I'm just shifting my body weight. I'm not moving my hands or my arms. I'm pressing down with my left hand onto the tool rest, and I'm keeping the tool braced against my hip. In this case, the tool is angled up at more of an angle, about a 45-degree angle, but it's braced against my hip, so it's not moving. Here you can see I'm just shifting my body weight from right to left and left to right as I'm doing the shear scrape. I've got a video all about the shear scrape. You're going to want to check that out so you know how to use this, because it will become an invaluable tool for you in your bolt turning. Now you can see how I merged those two areas together, taking down that high spot without removing a ton of material. And again, it's all in the way we shift our body weight. That's it. Okay, so let's talk about clearing out the interior. Now this is a little different because we do have the tool away from us quite a bit. Again, our left hand is never ever steering. It is only there to put down pressure on the tool rest. In this case, we're actually using our right hand on the handle and using it like a rudder on a boat, and we're pulling it around to make the cut. So we start the cut, put down pressure, and if you notice, there's a pivot point where the tool is intersecting with the tool rest. It's not a perfect circular pivot point because it does shift as you're making the cut. You need to be making the cut based on the curve and the shape of the bowl that you're doing, but essentially you're working around that pivot point, and you're using your right hand and the handle as leverage for bringing the tool around in that curve. It's all about simplicity. We want to remove movement in our hands and arms and bring it down to very simple, refined moves. And it's essentially shifting body weight. Again, I'm starting with my weight to the right. As I get to the middle of the curve, I should be standing upright in the middle of the path. And as I get to the end of the curve, my weight is shifted to the left. At no point do I become overextended or do I need to move my feet. Again, on the interior of the bowl, if I move my feet, I'm going to leave a tool mark there as well. Very simple, refined movements. Starting the cut, I'm putting down pressure and steering the handle around by shifting my body weight. That's it. That whole time, my left hand is spinning all its energy to keep pressure down on the tool rest. If the tool is not pressed down into the tool rest, there's a good chance it's going to vibrate, and that's going to create tool marks as well. So you reset by shifting back to the original position, start the cut, apply down pressure into the tool rest, and with my right arm, which again, I don't know if you noticed too, but my right arm is locked in a position, so I'm not letting that arm flex around much. Now, it's not as good as being up against my body, but I can't quite get it to my body because I can't reach over that far. But I'm locking that arm, so I'm not getting much vibration in that arm either. And I'm pressing down with the left hand and making a nice smooth shift of my body weight. You can see how smooth, it's almost mechanical, like the compass, where we have a very simple, repeatable movement.
Okay, so hopefully you see now how restricting and refining your movements when you're making cuts is actually going to benefit the overall appearance of your bowls. You're going to have nice straight lines and you're going to have nice flowing curves when you restrict your movement and you don't allow your body and you don't allow your hands and your arms to control the tool just randomly. You want to have that restricted, refined movement. Now, I do get a surprisingly large amount of questions from people that are restricted to chairs, whether it's a wheelchair or they're not able to stand for long periods of time and they turn while seated. The only thing that I could say, because I haven't done this myself and I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what your circumstances are, and obviously everybody's abilities are different. So what I would suggest though is if you have the ability to shift your weight while in your chair by moving your upper body from left to right, again, that's a refined movement. You could keep the tool up against your body and make a refined movement from left to right, and you should have better results than just using your hands and using your arms. You're just going to have to practice with that and see what works with you, but use what you're seeing here and apply it to your particular situation and see if you see improvements. Also, make sure your lathe is down at a height so you're not reaching up to it. You're either going to want to take the legs off and reconstruct a base for it, or there are lathes out there that can be rotated. I know Robust makes one called the Scout, and that can be mounted so that it's positioned down and you can sit next to it. And I'm sure there's other ones out there too, so you want to check those out. All right, guys, well, I hope this video has helped you understand the way we move our body when we're turning wood bowls. And if it has helped you, please do me a huge favor. Click that like button below the screen and also subscribe if you're not already subscribed. How are you not subscribing to this channel? That's crazy. If you're interested in turning wood bowls, I need you to subscribe to this channel. So go ahead and click that subscribe button and click the bell next to the subscribe button as well. That way you'll be notified each time one of my videos comes out and you're not going to want to miss any of those. And remember, go to turnawoodbowl.com for tons of information about how to turn wood bowls. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, happy turning.